Sea of Red, it's time for another Fireside Chat, the official podcast of Flames fans. It's go time.
Well, the preseason is underway, the ice is into the Saddle Dome, and the Battle of Alberta is over for the preseason pretty much. The Flames go 3 for 4, and I'm Dan alongside Matt. Matt, you and I were at the game last night. We'll recap in just a sec, but what a disappointing game.
Yeah, that was exciting if you like watching paint dry.
Well, okay, let's jump into that. I mean, you and I were looking at this team on paper. Calgary had like Backlund, Basha, Coleman, Coronado, Gridden, Honzig, Huberdeau, Kadri, Kirkland, Morton, Stromgren, Sunayev, Zari, Andersson, Bean, Shishik, Hanley, Parekh, Uyghur, and Cooley, and Edmonton had Curtis Lazar.
Yeah, it's like
and Brett Kulak.
Basically all of the Flames' top prospects, their opening day lineup, minus a few guys, and they had maybe one scoring chance the whole game.
Yeah, and like, you know, this Edmonton, I haven't heard of most of these guys in the Edmonton roster. Like, Connor Clattenburg sounds like a Timu version of Kel Clutterbuck. Like, you know, I have no idea who these guys are, and somehow they ended up coming out and looking way better than the Flames in this one.
Yeah, it's an odd way for the Flames to start their preseason.
Like, on paper, we should have run away with this game. We should have run away with both of them on paper.
Like, looking at the team, like, the Flames are not the most fast of teams. But it's like even like they were even trying to slow the game down even further, which the Oilers players, you know, just basically kept skating past the Flames guys who were just kind of standing still. Very odd way for the team to start the season. Like it was very lifeless from the guys in red.
I mean, you and I have criticized the Flames in the past for not starting on time. It felt like they started 60 minutes late in this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, did nobody tell them that the game had started?
Yeah, like, to the Oilers' credit, the handful of people that actually, you know, were okay in that lineup actually showed up for them. But yeah, it was not a really good performance by pretty much anybody in the Flames jersey in that one. Certainly one where you kind of chuck the tapes and go, you know, back to the drawing board after that one.
Well, thankfully up north in the second half of the split squad, the Flames roster did get that one done, and that was a Flames roster that included Battaglia, Bell, Bishop, Siona, Farabee, Firk, Frost, Hunt, Kieran, Klapka, Lombard, Postel, Ball, Hurtig, Kuznetsov, Mirmanov, Morin, Pakal, Soloviev, and Prosvetov and net. And they ended up getting a 3-2 overtime win here with 2 goals from Morgan Frost and 1 from Farabee. So somebody got the job done. You got to wonder when they all get back to the dressing room if there's going to be a razzing between these guys.
Well, if I was those guys, I'd just certainly be going, gee, you know, you guys had the easier lineup, and what's up with you guys?
And you wonder if the coaching staff's going, crap, we had pretty much our NHL team here and couldn't get this done against, you know, essentially the next gen roster that we saw last year or last week, pretty much same roster.
Yeah, like, you know, it's bad when the Flames prospects put up 11 goals in 2 games against basically this lineup, and the Flames got 0 scoring chances pretty much in this game.
Yeah, and
not a good look.
No, it wasn't. And you know, I think a good thing it's preseason. That's what preseason is for. I'm glad to see that Frost and Farabee are on the board in this one. But yeah, this was the Flames have now played the Oilers 4 times in 2 weeks. The 2 next gen games last week, and then the split squad game here, and we're 3 out of 4. So I guess it's not too bad. I can't remember last time we went 3 out of 4 in the Battle of Alberta.
Yeah, well, and it's one of those things that, especially in the game in Calgary, that you wonder, like, if all the veteran guys are just kind of like, I'm not going to actually try too hard, just wanting to get the legs under them a bit for, like, the future preseason games.
But even not trying too hard, I would have expected more than this.
True.
Like most of that team looked lifeless. I think maybe Coronado, who was one of the stars, was the only guy who had any game there. But I mean, most of this team, they're missing passes. There was nobody picking up rebounds, nobody in front of the net. There were some weird passes right out of the zone. Like, it seemed like this was, mid-July shinny.
Yeah, that's very much how it felt like, which is fine. It's the first preseason game, and you just hope that this is not what we're looking forward to this year. Otherwise, hello, 32nd.
We're gonna need to go to our friends at Bow River Brewing and get ourselves a good beer sponsorship. If this is what we're getting for 82.
Yeah. Hello, Gavin McKenna. Welcome to the Sea of Red.
Even McKenna might be worried about joining us at that point. Watch, if the Flames are that bad, Matt, they'd be number one and they would lose the lottery.
Oh yeah, well, we'd end up getting the 3rd overall pick on that one. So
yeah. Well, some good news, though. The Flames had another contract re-signing. You and I talked about a couple contract re-signings last week. The captain, Mikael Backlund, has signed 2 more years at $3.5 million average. He's on a $4.5 million contract this year. So that locks him up. He's 36 right now until he's pretty much 38. I'll give my thoughts on this first. I love this deal. I've heard a lot of people say that the Flames need to keep some space for young players, need to open up roster spots. They don't have any centermen knocking on the door. And even if they did, you need veterans in the lineup. I mean, look at any good rebuilding team. It's not all guys under 25. Backlund's a good leader. Backlund's a good veteran. Backlund can anchor a line with almost anybody we've seen. I think if he wants to be here, and if you listen to his press conference, he made it clear that he wants to retire in Calgary. His family likes this place. I want to keep him here. Like, I love this. I love that he's going down in price, which I think makes sense. This, to me, is a great deal, and I'm happy Backlund's sticking around.
Yeah, like, to me, this is a no-brainer. And, like, realistically, when your top center prospect is Cole Reshny, who's an undersized center, and there's not really any significant competition there, like, it's going to be 2, 3, 4 years before the Flames get actual pressure up the middle to have legitimate NHL centers, and being able to pencil in one of the spots with Backlund for the foreseeable future. Basically, by the time Backlund's contract is up, you would expect the next generation of draft picks from this upcoming draft, the next draft, to be starting to work their way into the NHL. And, say on the hypothetical that they did get a Gavin McKenna, or, whoever's the 3rd overall pick version of that guy, that you'd slot him in, the following year, and, you would still have guys like Kadri and Frost and Backlund there as veteran backups to the kid coming in, and, allows the team some flexibility, so that way they don't need to rush people in, like at, say, Cole Reshny. Like, they don't need to have him coming into the team next year saying, like, we need you in the NHL. Like, there's no need to rush him. Just let him do what he needs to do.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of young wingers coming up, and I think you and I would probably agree. I mean, going all the way back to the 3M line, way back when, Backlund makes everybody he plays with better. And I think this is the kind of guy that you can have 2 kids, put them on either side of Backlund, even if that end up being your 4th line at some point, or your 3rd line, and you're going to get more out of those guys than you normally would. It's sort of like how Giordano, he used to, everyone he played with, he made look way better. Like, this is a guy that you want to have here.
Oh, for sure. And that's why, like, I'm not in any rush to move guys like Kadri, like Backlund, because they make their line mates better. We saw that with Coronado and Zari getting put with Kadri at various points. So we'll see how it goes, but it would be different if, like, the Flames had, like Michael Misa, for example, in the prospect pool, ready to make the jump to the NHL this year. You might be creating a little bit of a logjam with Backlund, but with there not being anybody like that organizationally. Like, it makes perfect sense to just take a little bit of the pressure off of that and urgency to maybe shoehorn a guy in ahead of schedule, sort of like they did with Sam Bennett back in the day.
Yeah, I think you're totally right there, and I think I'm just doing the math here. Backlund, I think, is trying to become the Flame with the most games played. He has 1,066 so far, and Jerome has 1,219. One thing that might work in Back's favor is next year we get an 84-game season instead of 82, so you could get, a couple more games out of that. I think, Matt, if you look at this too, like, he's 36, Backlund. He's going to be 38 when this is over. He's been very healthy for a guy of his age. I don't see him playing a full 82 or even 80 games for the next 3 years. Like, even if there's a guy who, is playing in his last year, half your games as your captain or an alternate because they've given the seat to somebody, I think just having that leadership around the team is going to be important.
Well, and the thing is that, like, assuming that Backlund wants to win a Stanley Cup before he's done, like, there is no reason why, like, 2 years from now that he couldn't get traded to insert contender here to be their fourth line center. Like, having a defensively responsible guy who's not bad offensively and makes his line mates better is basically what any cup contending team would want. So,
and it's interesting you mentioned that, because if you look at how this deal's structured, Backlund's a full no-movement clause through December 31st of 2027, and starting on January 1st, 2028, a 10-team no-trade clause. So, obviously, there's some thought that, in that last year, they might want to move him somewhere.
Yeah, and which that would make sense for both parties. And, like we saw with Kyle Okposo getting dealt to the Panthers 2 seasons ago, to try and win the Stanley Cup with the Panthers and being successful and then, skating off into the sunset. We might see something similar with Backlund when the time comes.
I would love to see Backlund as a career Flame. I'd like to see him stay here his whole career if he can, and he talked about wanting to be that one jersey player. I mean, I think it'll be very much like Jerome. If he wants to chase that in the last year, we'll all be happy for him to go do that. And this is a guy that I can see being around this organization for a while. I can kind of see him being the next Conroy, right? I mean, Conroy was not the best player when he retired. He was a good role player on the team. I think that's where Backlund is now. I think that, we could easily see Backlund maybe go away for a year, come back, and then be part of the organization in some form. I mean, what was Connie's first job? He was special assistant to the GM or something, which doesn't even mean anything. Yeah. Like, I could see Backlund being special assistant to Zamboni driver, or, who knows what they need, but just finding a way to keep him around.
Yeah, and that's basically what Iginla's role in the organization is just, I'm an advisor. Yes. Call me if you need me.
That's right. Advisor to new arena supervising or something. Yeah. Do you remember the 60s Batman with the red phone? I kind of see this like Backlund and
Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, Jerome and Bax have these in their house. Like, what? Conroy's calling quickly to the Saddledome or to Scotia Place. And everybody, follows the Flaming Sea signal. But I like this. I think those that are...
Does that project the Flames logo on the ceiling?
Yeah, well, it'll project into the sky above us.
Yes.
I think for people that have been critical of this online, I've been asking them, who do you feel that Backlund is, taking a lineup spot from? I think if we look at it, Zari and Sam Morton are the two next centers up. And I think... not Zari. Kieran's and Morton are the two next centers up. I think that both those guys, if they come in, probably end up being a third, fourth line center right now. And I don't know that either one is gunning for Backlund's job. So, I think this is just fine. I love Backlund. And, we talked about this last week, Matt, guys that want to be here, right? If he wants to be here, keep him here.
Oh, for sure. And... how would you say, like, the Flames are in a spot where, like, for all intents and purposes, like, the on-ice product for the next 3 years is kind of secondary to the organizational growth and development in terms of how the prospects turn into pros and all of that. So having a guy like Backlund, who is a proven player that is... always been good at helping his line mates be better and is a good teacher, like, if you run into the problem where, say, guys like Morton and Kieran's actually push their way into the NHL, they're obviously going to be pushing other people out.
But I feel there's a lot of other people you could push out before Backlund.
Exactly, and you can never have enough center depth, and so you'd be more apt to like move a winger, trade them, or demote them to the farm, or make them the 13th forward if those guys actually like push their way into the team.
And I mean the Flames have been using Pospisil as a center at training camp. I don't like that at all. So if you're looking for a centerman there, I think that's an easy one to steal a job from.
Exactly, and like realistically, Pospisil needs to be on the wing, but again, like we're kind of shorthanded in terms of having anybody who can play center organizationally.
Yeah, and I think just the leadership of Backlund is going to be something that people are undervaluing for what that veteran leadership brings here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, training camp is
and plus we can say that, hey, the captain re-signed in Alberta.
Yep.
Something that another team can't, so.
We'll see. We don't know. I don't think so, but we don't know for sure yet.
The other guy might look good in red in a year, but we'll see.
He's not going to be wearing Flames red. We know that.
Yeah. It would be funny, though.
It would, but of 31 other markets, this isn't going to be the one he's going to pick.
Oh, no, for sure.
It might be Florida red.
Yeah.
But I don't see any scenario where he'd pick the Flames.
No. It would be hilarious, though, but no.
Training camp kicked off. We now have both the rookies and the veterans at camp. Big roster together. Seeing a lot of these guys on the ice with the coaches. Matt, we talked last week about some of the jobs that are open, but what do we need to see from, I guess, this training camp and this preseason in your mind?
Well, one of the good things about this organization is that they have a lot of good depth players, both up front and on the blue line. And so there are jobs available for everybody if you take it. And nobody really organizationally outside of guys like Huberdeau and Kadri are guaranteed their spots. And like if a guy like, say, Pospisil plays terribly and, say, Hanzik comes up and is just dominant like he was last year in preseason, you might see Pospisil getting relegated to the 13th forward spot. And same on the blue line. Like there's, I feel like 6 or 7 players fighting for the last 3 spots on the depth chart. And it's basically a battle royale to see who is going to actually walk away with the 6, 7, 8 spots, especially.
Yeah, I think we talked about some of those spots last week for sure, and there's definitely a few openings, more on the blue line than the forward ranks, I think. We'd both agree. I think when I'm looking at what we need to see here is we need to see these guys, both young guys and older. Well, I think we need to see the young guys all trying to take that step. Obviously, not everybody can make it, but you've got guys like Cairns, who was on the bubble last year. Even a guy like Clark Bishop, who got a look. Like, I think you need those guys coming into camp and treating this as though they're fighting for that spot, and they believe there is a spot for them. Because even if they're going to be on the Wranglers, they need that. They need to be looking at this as though they're trying to win that NHL job.
Well, and also with having so many players that are on the cusp of being NHL players, it also creates some pressure from the top down as well. Like guys that, say like a Blake Coleman, if he's not playing up to snuff as well, like they could decide to move him at some point during the season when it makes sense in order to create an organizational roster spot. Like, I'm not saying like out of training camp, but like towards the trade deadline.
And we'll definitely see injuries and stuff too.
Yeah. And it's one of those where even like if certain players don't necessarily win jobs out of training camp, you're putting yourself on like the first call up, and like especially if you tear it up in the A, you might force a roster move where, a trade or letting a player go on waivers who might be struggling at some point. And having this competition will help one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at Zari and Pospisil, right, those are two guys that came in who had a good training camp, didn't make the team out of camp, but then were early call-ups and have stayed in the NHL since. And that's why I think everyone needs to treat this as though they are fighting for a roster spot, because you never know who's going to go down, who's going to open up a spot. And if you're ready to take it, then I think, it could easily become your spot. But I think these guys need to treat it that way. One thing I love here is how integrated it seems that the Wranglers and the Flames coaches are together on the ice. And they're using the same verbiage, they're using the same language, they're working together. I think that's really important for developing these young players too.
Well, it also helps with everybody being in the same building, because you can just literally go down to the next office and say, hey, want to be on the same page with how we approach player X, and be able to talk it through so everybody is on the same page, on the usage of and like what they need from him to get better for whatever role that player is in. And, having that ability to coordinate between everybody is a huge bonus for this team.
Based on what you've seen early on in this training camp, have your thoughts on who might be able to steal a spot, either because they're looking better or NHL guys aren't looking as good, changed since last week?
Not really. Like, I kind of expected some of the veteran prospects like Stromgren and Honzig to be pushing for NHL spots. In the game against the Oilers, I felt they were the two best players on the Flames in that game. I don't feel that they were quite good enough to be NHL players, even with their good performance, but it'll be
and it's
interesting
because Honzig, I thought, looked really good in the rookie games. I thought he was hand over fist better than everyone else. But then when it came to playing, I guess, a little more competitive roster, I thought he looked fine, but he didn't stand out the way they did in the rookie games.
No, but how would you say everybody in the Flames jersey was terrible? So, like,
and you and I were sitting at the dome watching this, and I
were,
said to you, like, we'll see how he does when he has veterans, on a lineup with him.
Yeah, and it's one of those, like, those two were, like, the least bad of a bad group, and which is not exactly high praise either. It's just, as you said, like, as we're getting further into the training camp, like, we'll see how each of these guys responds, but at least they were showing some sort of life.
After what we saw in that Flames game and what I've seen kind of from camp, I also think Flames fans need to temper their expectations around Parekh.
Oh, yes.
Like, I don't think this kid's going to come in and in his first year be a Dustin Wolf type, game breaker for the Flames. I think if he makes the team, which I think is very likely he will, because sending him back to the ECA or the OHL does nothing for him. I don't think this guy is going to. I don't think they're going to push him to the moon right away. And I think that that's one of the issues. You and I have talked about this with Sam Honzig, is they pushed him too fast, too quick. I think if he does come in, Flames fans have to be okay with this guy struggling a little bit and even being a 5-6 for most of the season.
Yeah, like, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets, like, the 9 games type of thing that we've seen and then gets reassigned to the OHL, especially if he struggles through. It's tough because, like, he's learning how to play against men, and, like, there were at least a half dozen times in the game where it's like, you can't be doing that at the NHL level type mistakes. And he did recover on a couple of them, but, his offensive acumen is good, and, like, he kind of caught a bunch of guys off guard with his passes, but it's one of those where, like, if he plays the full season and gets, like, top 4 minutes, like, he's going to be, like, a -70 or something ridiculous. Like, it's not going to be pretty.
We're seeing the NHL implement some of these new CBA changes now and some next season. And the one I really wish they would implement this year is to allow one 19-year-old in the AHL, because I think that would be the perfect place for Parekh.
Yes, I agree.
It's kind of too bad that we're 1 year away from that when we need it now.
I know. And he would be ideal for that spot, because I feel like he needs some time in the a lower level to get his game up, especially against men versus his junior alum. It's just I don't know if he's going to be a little too far over his head once the NHL season starts, but it might be not good for him. It might be great for him.
Well, and I also don't know, I think a rookie like that you want to put out with a good partner. I don't think that they will put him on the top 4. So what do you play him with Bean? That's not the best way to introduce him to this league.
No, and I'm going to harken way back to when the Flames first called up TJ Brody to the NHL.
Good old number 66.
And he was horrendous in his own zone the first season. It was how is this guy going to ever play in the NHL? And he learned how to play adequate defense at the NHL level and actually became a solid top pairing defenseman for a number of years for the Flames. It's one of those where it depends on how he learns at the NHL level, but I remember that first season with Brody was what are you doing out there so often? The game with Parekh yesterday, I felt a lot of that same energy. But, if he can learn how to be at least an average NHL defenseman on the defensive side of the puck, his offensive side will make him a star.
Yeah, I just think that fans need, especially I've seen him live, I think fans need to really temper their expectation of what this guy's going to be, especially in year 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then another defensive name, Rasmus Andersson, has shown up at camp. Obviously, he's a Calgary Flame, but a lot of people thought that he might not be a Calgary Flame still to this point. I think you were one of the people that thought that he may not have been a Flame come training camp. Matt Andersson, let's start with this. Surprised he's still here?
Honestly, if you had asked me at this point last year if he would be here now, I would have said maybe a 2% chance. And, he is still here. I don't feel that, organizationally, especially with the guys coming up, that it makes sense to keep him beyond this season. But the Flames are also in a bit of a quandary because they don't really have any other options. So
I know some people think it might be a distraction. Do you think that if the Flames are bad, having another story might actually be a good thing for the team?
Yes and no. How would you say? If he has another season like he did a year ago, he was one of the worst in plus minus last year, and if his stats equally suffer because the team is bad, it'll both tamp down the return you get for him, and it just contributes to all the bad stories that we had a couple years ago where everybody wanted out. And that's part of the reason why I personally wanted him traded before now, was just so that way we didn't have to go through the same set of storylines again. But it is what it is, unfortunately. And I just want to preface this. Andersson's actually one of my favorite players on this team, and has been since the day we drafted him. I really like him as a person and as a player. It's just, I'm worried that this is going to cause an unneeded distraction in the dressing room, especially if guys some of the other veterans start to struggle too. Because then it's oh, well, should we ship Kadri out, or Coleman, or Huberdeau, or and?
But I think those other names would still come up even if Andersson's not here.
True. It kind of spirals a bit, and, it's going to be tough, especially I'm expecting this team to be closer to a bottom 5 team this year. It's going to be a long season, I feel, and getting mud thrown in your face on top of it is just kind of not what this organization needs.
What do you think is the % chance that he's not a Flame before the season opens?
I feel that he'll start the year here. Frankly, the Flames don't have a top 4 option besides him. Like, realistically, in terms of talent, the top 4
Daniil
is going
Mermanov.
Uyghur, Andersson, Ball, and Parekh will be the top 4 defensemen. And, like, as good as Hanley did filling in as a quasi-top line defenseman last year, he was perennially been at number 7. And
I think there's some growth still potentially for Braden Bacall.
Yes, but, like, there's no real
number
top 4 guys, in the organization right now. Like, Brustevich is close, but he needs some time in the NHL as a 5'6" to become a number 4. And, like, it's just the wrong time, basically. So I feel that, like, the Flames need Andersson to play for at least, a good half of the season, and then, like, more or less once the Olympic break hits, maybe a couple weeks before that, if they're wanting to get their homework done early, they might, in a similar way that they traded Lindholm at the end of January that one year.
Yeah, I mean, if we kind of think of the NHL season milestones for this year, do you think he'll be a Flame in American Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Do you think he'll be
Christmas?
And Christmas. So you think the Olympic break might be the earliest they'd look at moving him?
Yeah, probably the end of January, like the couple of games before the Olympic break, because that would give him time to, hang out with his new teammates.
And I believe there is a trade freeze during the Olympics.
Yes, so, and if not, then, like, unless he's signed, I would assume that he'd be traded by the trade deadline.
If he gets traded this year, I think the trade deadline is when it happens, but I don't think Calgary Flames fans are going to get what they expect to get for him. He's a 28-year-old defenseman. He's a good defenseman, but he's a 28-year-old defenseman. 28's generally when we start to see defensemen regress a little bit. I think you might get something decent as a rental, but nobody's bringing this guy in to build their franchise around at this point. And I think Flames fans could be disappointed by that, just like we saw with some of the other returns on guys like Hanifin and stuff. I think there's a scenario where he signs here.
I do too, and how would you say? Would I be sad if the Flames re-signed him? No, because he is one of my favorite players on the team. It's just that looking at all of the other guys organizationally, it just doesn't make much sense to keep him long term.
See, well, I guess it depends what we look at long term. Like, I don't think you're signing an 8-year deal with a 28-year-old defenseman, maybe. But even then, I mean, okay, so we've got Brustevich coming up. We've got Soloviev, Kuznetsov, Parekh. Like, as we said, they've got nothing on the back end. I think there's an argument to be made that if Andersson wants to stay here, even if he doesn't stay in your top 4, even if he gets into his 30s and becomes a 5'6" guy, he's a stable defenseman and a veteran defenseman to help play with some of those young guys.
That's entirely true. And it's tough because of the fact, like, the Flames do have a rather large group of defense prospects that are coming up. And, like, that does kind of create a small problem. Say, guys like Morin and Poirier and Muse, say, like, a handful of them actually turn into NHL caliber defensemen. All of a sudden, there's no spots for anybody.
But I think at that point, you'll find a home for Andersson.
Yeah, and that's where it gets just a tiny bit tougher to...
But I would say, sort of like we talked about the forwards, make that a down-the-road problem. If you can force Rasmus Andersson out of this lineup, great, you're in. Right? Like, if you have to force us trade him for future considerations or even a 7th, we'll do it. But when I look at the young guys here, I don't see... I mean, let's go through some of these names. Let's say Andersson signs a 4-year deal, just for the sake of argument. Do you see Brustevich in the top 4 in the next 4 years?
Yes.
So there's one. So I think we have one spot in the top 4. Do you see Morin in the top 4 in the next 4 years?
I see him more as a 5'6" at this point with potential to jump up, like, say, year 4.
What about Grishnikov?
No.
Kuznetsov?
No.
Poirier?
No.
Soloviev?
No.
Nick Sisek?
No.
So you've got a spot in the top four for Andersson. Like, I think I still think that there's a very real possibility he stays, sort of like the Backlund deal. Have your vet on the front, have your vet on the back, give him the C when Backlund's done with it. I don't think you signed like an 8-year deal, but I could reasonably see a 4-year deal just because I think the Flames need a steady defenseman. And I would love to see a pair down the road, sort of like Gio being the old, faithful guy. I could totally see Parekh and Andersson down the road.
Yeah, it's just one of those where it's hard when you have guys like Weegar and Ball who are also very good at what they do. And frankly, like Brustevich, Parekh, and Andersson are basically all three of them are the same player. They're offensively minded two-way defensemen. Anderson's better, obviously, defensively than the other two because they're
and better at staring down fans than the other two.
He can teach them.
I can just see the coach on the ice. Guys, what are you doing? Shut up. We're staring down the Zamboni guy.
Yes.
Put someone's blow up doll in the stands and just stare at it.
Yes.
And I don't disagree that those guys are similar, but again, those guys aren't ready. Like, I'm not saying sign Andersson because he's a great defenseman. There's a lot of mediocre old defensemen in this league, and I think Andersson could be that when he turns 31, 32. But when you look around at defensemen that would probably make as much as him, who are signed to 3-4 year deals, I don't know that you're going to get what the huge return in Andersson. If it's going to be a mediocre return, I'd almost rather just keep him.
Yeah.
If he wants to stay.
And it also depends on what the return is. Like, if you're basically going to get like the equivalent of a second round pick and that's it, versus him being re-signed for 3 years at say $7 million a season, you'd probably defer to keeping him. But it's one of those where, honestly, I think that part of what will inform this is how A, Parekh plays this year, and B, how Brustevich plays this year. Because, like, if both of those guys are in the NHL, I think that you need to move Andersson. And if, like, one or both are not in the NHL, like, they return Parekh to juniors and Brustevich is in the A, then I think that keeping him for a bit might not be the worst idea either.
Yeah, like I'm not saying sign to a 9-year deal, but if you do the same deal you did for the captain, 2 years, let's say they up him even to 5, or let's say they drop him to 4, like, somewhere in that $4 to $5 million range, I think that's totally fine. I'm not saying sign him, until he's got gray hair, but use him as a stopgap because sometimes it's better to play with the devil you know than the devil you don't.
True.
I mean, I'm just looking at old defensemen who are expensive. Radko Gudas is signed to a deal. He's 35 for $4 million in Anaheim. Like, that's the kind of deal I could see given Andersson as they move forward.
Yeah, like, honestly though, I think that like Andersson's probably going to get $7 or $8 million on the free agent market, and that's part of like what my concern with keeping him is the large amount of dollars.
But the Flames have money to play with. Again, if it's not long term, I think.
Well, and that's where like my concern is that is this a young player on this organization? No. So I would rather spend that money on the Coronados and the Wolves. And honestly, if it was say a 3-year deal at say $7.5 million, I'd actually be more tempted to just let Andersson walk. Period, and not get a return at all. So that way they could reinvest that money towards
who do you think they need to sign right now? They've got $11 million that they would need that money for.
Well, and that's the thing, like having flexibility helps, and you never know. Like there could be a 97 coming your way. I'm joking. But, it's one of those that...
But we've also seen that Conroy's had flexibility and done nothing with it.
Well, and how would you say, like, if you were...
Okay, let's look at the UFAs this year. So,
well, I just want to finish my thought first before that. You can quickly price yourself into a Frolik and a Kachuk situation where you're needing to harm your relationship with your young star player because you're wanting to keep a veteran guy. And like, while this upcoming season, like, that's clearly not an issue for this team, like in 2 or 3 years, that very well could be. And having, like, say $40 million tied up between Kadri, Huberdeau, Anderson, Weegar, and Ball, like, that's, like, you're starting to run into not having a ton of room if, you have other guys coming in. Like, say Parekh turns into Cale Makar, and you're needing to re-sign him for like 8 years at the end of his contract. You're gonna be it's probably gonna be like a $9 or $10 million a year deal. But
I think you can structure it around those.
It's just that you can quickly run into issues at that point.
Sure, yeah, but I mean, let's say Parek's got 3 years, so let's say they sign Anderson to 2 more. That puts him at the same end as Parekh. So now if you need the money, you let him walk. I think there's ways you can do it if you wanted to, that you can make that work. And if you've got a superstar, you're going to find a way. I mean, if you've got to, eat half of Weegar to get rid of him, you would do that. Or if you got to eat half of Anderson, you would do that. Like, if I look at, I know where you're going, Matt, and I totally understand what you're saying, but I don't think that $7 million is going to be that bad for a defenseman moving forward. And I think that Calgary would probably get a hometown discount if they're going to keep him. Like, I think if you want 7, go to the market. But I think this would have to be a Backlund-like deal where you're taking a bit of a cut to stay here, or roughly the same. I mean, he's at 4.5. Like, I can't see going more than 6 for 2. $6 million for 2 years.
And we'll see. Honestly, it'll be interesting. One of the storylines that we cover, like, especially his on ice play, like, if he bounces back to pre-Detroit getting hit by the car Anderson, where he was a lot better before that.
And again, I think there's even some benefit to keeping him post car accident Anderson because of his passion, his love of the city, and just being a veteran presence there too.
Oh, for sure. Because, like, how would you say, like, if he's on pace for like 50 to 60 points and is playing reasonably well at both ends of the ice, that contract will quickly be pushing $9 million. Then, and like, that's where, one of the things that we'll have to cover over the course of the season, like, if he is like the number 1 defenseman that he was, that's a lot different than the number 4 guy that he kind of was last year.
But I was thinking, if he's the number 1 guy, there'll be a bigger trade market for him, right? Like, that's going to change things too. So,
well, then you'd be probably getting a lot more than what Carlo got for Boston.
Mean, assuming that he's 28, he's slowing down a little bit. I mean, if we look at contracts that need to be re-signed, which is where I was going to go, Lomberg's at $2 million this year. This is last year. I don't see him making much more than that. Maybe you extend him to 2.5, but this is not a guy that's going to make a ton of money.
Yeah. Honestly, I think you'd probably re-sign him for the 2 years at the same amount.
I agree. Kirkland's 900. I mean, he's not going to make more than $1.5 million. Anderson's 4.5. Bean's 1.7. I think Bean's done. Maramanov's 1.2. He's done. Prosvetov's 950. Maybe he gets a $1 million raise if he plays really well. Like, it's not like the team needs a lot of money next year.
No, it's just more like future-proofing the team because of guys coming up and, the Parekhs and here's an interesting look. So Anderson's making 4.5. The Flames are on the hook this year for 1.87 from Markstrom. If you were to give him that 1.87 for 2 more years, how would you feel? Fine.
There you go. So if he was pushing 6, which I think is about what you'd pay him, I mean, he's not going to be a number 2, right? And I think...
Yeah. Well, and like, if we basically are basing it off of last year's Anderson, him getting like 6.5 over like 3-4 years, that's perfectly reasonable, and I would be perfectly happy with that. It's just, how do you say, Anderson more than any player in recent Flames history, is like the biggest question mark. Because like his situation, like all the young players coming up and his own performance, it's all kind of up in the air.
And these are all reasons I don't think he's going to make he's going to get as big a return as we think he's going to.
And and like that's why like I wouldn't be surprised if the Flames, come January sign him to a contract. It's just we'll see. And like I personally wouldn't be opposed if he is back. Like he is one of my favorite players on the team and has been again since he's been a Flame. It's just looking, like what's best for the rebuild and organizationally 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now.
Yeah, no, and I just wanted to bring it up because I think there's a lot of fans who feel that this is a foregone conclusion. And I'm not sold.
Neither am I. And how would you say, like, most of the times, like, say, like, when Lindholm, Hanifin, Tanev, and all them left, like, it was kind of like the writing was on the wall that, like, the Flames were going into a rebuild that year, and, like, those guys were leaving. And so it was kind of like there was an inevitability that, and, like, right now, this team, both in terms of their rebuild and the guys on the ice, everything is a bit of a jump ball, and like we don't know if the Flames are going to be in the playoff hunt like they were a year ago, or if they're going to basically be like down where Chicago, San Jose, and Anaheim were last year. Anything and everything can happen, and it'll be interesting to see exactly how things shake out, because this team could finish anywhere from 1 to 18, I feel, in the league, and I don't feel that
from 1 to 18 draft picks or 1 to 18 from the top?
From the bottom. So draft picks.
Okay, because there's no way this team's finishing number one in the league. There's no way the President's Trophy's coming to Calgary.
I was meaning in terms of draft picks. So like they might just squeak into the playoffs.
I was about ready to go find somebody else to run the show for this year.
I was meaning like they might just barely squeak into the playoffs, be one of like the it's sort of like last year how we were better than Montreal and missed the playoffs, that kind of thing, where like we might be just above the cutoff, but like I don't see us being like it could be anywhere in that spectrum, and there are just too many.
I think the defense is going to be a big part of the Flames' success or failure.
I agree. And frankly, the forward group, like, will the veteran guys play as well as they did last year? And will guys like Sharon Govich bounce back?
All big questions that we'll look at as we get close to the season starting. You and I have expressed some discontent with this defensive group, and this is really the first time in a while I can't remember the Flames bringing in even a single veteran on a PTO. We've seen that quite a bit in the past. But when I was looking at the UFA list, there's some interesting names on there, and I just wanted to float this by you. Do you think that there's any scenario in which the Flames say, you know what, we're not seeing what we want out of camp, let's go out and bring in an Alec Martinez or Dennis or David Savard or somebody like that to a TJ Brody even, to just shore up the defenseman a little bit?
Honestly, that'll be a question for like 3 or 4 games from now. Could very well be. Like Bean was terrible yesterday specifically. And as were a bunch of the Flames players, but like he seemed to be extra. Somehow
Mermanov got a point in Edmonton.
So it'll depend. Like if Hanley and Pahal and Bean all struggle and none of the kids step up, the Flames might need a body. Similarly up front, they might feel the need to sign somebody if they're...
Well, I was going to say, like up front, Jack Roslovic is still a free agent. He had 39 points last year and he's 28. At this point, you can't be, I don't think, too picky about what contract you get. You just got to take what comes your way. Could you see a scenario where Roslovic gets signed as the 4C?
I'm actually somewhat shocked that he hasn't signed.
Me too. Like at 39 points last year, and even Matt Grzelcyk had 40 points, and he's still a UFA, a defenseman. Like, I'm surprised these guys are still out there.
Yeah, yeah. I guess like there's not a lot of teams that are looking for external solutions, but it's.
I have a feeling that somebody like Roslovic at 20 was probably looking for too long, and that's probably why nobody signed him.
No, for sure, and. Like I somewhat like how like the Flames signed Sonny Milano a few years ago to the PTO before he went to the Capitals that year. Like I would be all for signing Roslovic to a PTO and potentially like a 1-year deal, sort of like how they did with Mantha. And
I was about to say, this is like the Mantha deal. Like, bring him in, have some veteran depth around. 28 is still not bad for age. And if he can, he had 39 points. Even if he can get 30 points as a 3-4 center, I think that might be an interesting look.
Well, and how would you say, like the Flames, I feel like signed Mantha to try to parlay him into a draft pick at the trade deadline.
Exactly.
And injuries kind of just, got in the way. It's not a bad idea to try to roll the dice again on that front, but
and I'm surprised that not only is Roslovic not signed, he doesn't have a PTO anywhere. Like, I'm looking at this list, I can see Pat Maroon not having a tryout. Thomas Tatar's on the list too. He doesn't have a tryout. David Savard doesn't. Max Pacioretty's probably done. Alex Martinez doesn't. Like, there's a lot of guys here who just seem like they could be valuable to somebody.
Yeah, like even as like a 6th, 7th, or like how Pacioretty was with the Leafs, where he is just a good fill-in guy. You'd figure that somebody would give him a shot, but
even a guy like Jimmy Vesey, who's 32, could be a decent
13,
3-4,
14 guy.
Yeah. Daniel Sprong could be a decent guy at 28. Like, 3-4 line, or even your extra. Like, I know we don't want to bring in more players at this point, but I would rather have a veteran as the 13 than a young guy not playing. And I think, a guy like Kevin LeBlanc is, he's got a tryout right now, but he has nowhere to go. Like, I could see just bringing in, sort of like when they had Trevor Lewis in that role a couple of years ago, right? Like, I could see bringing in a guy like this, just say, okay, he's our Michael Stone. He's our veteran guy who's going to sit on the bench and watch. And when we need him, we know he's ready. Robbie Fabry, another one.
I know. It's kind of interesting that a few of these names are out there still, but I think that, like, especially, how would you say, if the Flames' performance against the Oilers here last night continues into Game 4, Game 5, Game 6, you might see a PTO be issued to whatever area is needed, but
I wonder at this point if you could sign a guy like Thomas Tatar and sneak him through waivers. Like, if you said, hey, we just need a really good centerman for the Wranglers to start, like, if somebody wanted him, they could have had him already.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you could.
Like, it's just with some of the talent out there, it'd probably take whatever deal they can get at this point. Because, it's probably better playing for the Wranglers than going to play in, small European league for some of these guys. It's an interesting proposition.
Yeah.
Even a guy like a Tyler Mott or a Brock McGinn, like, a Luke Glendening, Dan Sprong. I don't know what got me looking at the UFA list, but I'm like, this is an interesting list on September 22nd.
Oh, for sure. It feels like this is like the August 1st list, where, you're still waiting for these people to sign with whomever.
Yeah, and like even Kadri was a late signing, but he was done before the training camp.
Just an odd situation.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to a couple other Flames notes here. What's old is new again. Marcus Nielsen, who played for this team in the 04 run, a teammate of Iggy and Connie and Kipper, is back with the Flames. He's the new European Pro Scout. There's a guy I hadn't thought of in a while.
Mild shock. Another 04 guy getting hired by the Calgary Flames.
We criticized the Oilers when they did this, right? Like, when they were bringing in, Kevin Lowe as their GM, like, we have to admit we criticized them for that. And I wonder if the Flames are getting a little too much down that road.
I agree. And it's not necessary. How would you say? If you're going to hire somebody like that, having a European scout that's somebody that you know is not necessarily a bad thing. Sort of like how the Flames had Hakan Lube doing it. I don't view that as big of a deal, especially the European scouts, because it's a lot different than having like your entire like coaching staff and managerial thing being, like we're about halfway to the Oilers. The Oilers are
Just out of curiosity, let's count this out. So in management, we've got Maloney was never here, Nonis was never here, Pasco was never here, Hanlon was never here. So we've got Conroy and Iggy. So 2 of the 7 management types.
Yeah.
6 management types. Coaching staff, Dave Lowry, even though he wasn't 04, it feels like, bringing in another Flames guy. That's the only one. Siglet wasn't here, Barbera wasn't here, the rest of them never really played in the NHL. Player development, we got Jelena, we've got Stone, we've got Stajan. Training staff, none of them. And equipment managers, none of them. Let's see, on our scouts, Nielsen. I'm just looking at the list on the website here. Oh, wow. Peter Labardius is an official scout this year. I mean, it's... Oh, and Lanny McDonald is part of the communications team, I guess. He's community ambassador / Hockey Hall of Famer. So, I mean, you're right. It's not as bad as maybe the Oilers, and I think that, Conroy has shown that he is somewhat capable as a GM. Unlike Lowe, but I think we need
even having Lowry as an assistant coach. Like Lowry has been a very good coach at all levels, so it's not like they're just hiring, oh, you're my buddy, so get in here type of thing. Like he has an actual resume that warrants, if we were say the Dallas Stars, signing Lowry to be the coach would be perfectly, a good hire. So
yeah.
It just so happens.
So I'm just looking at the roster here. So there's still a bunch of guys we got to find jobs for. Blair Betts, Chris Clark, Commodore,
Saprikin.
Donovan, Evans, Ferentz, Gauthier, Josh Green. Kipper's probably never coming back. Kobasu, Leopold, Lombardi. Oh, Lowry was in that roster. Okay. Lynn Lyons, Tony Lidman, McCammond. What's Noodles doing? He's around different places. Montador.
The Joker, Ville
Jason
Nieminen.
Morgan. The Ville Nieminen could be a scout there. Christoph Oliwa, Regier, Reinprecht, Sabarin, Saprikin, Simon, Sonnenberg, Turek, Yell, and Warner. So got a lot more jobs to fill. But yeah, I don't know. When I saw this, I thought, and like you said, no harm, no foul having a European scout. He's not the European scout, but I don't know. I'm wondering how much of this is, let's just get the band back together.
Well, and how would you say, especially with like a European scout, it's more to like highlight that, oh, you should send all of your scouting staff to look at player XYZ, and make a few, calls there. I'm a little less concerned on that front, just because, it's just flagging, oh, hey, you should look at these people.
Yeah, and you can have many voices there, too.
Exactly. Well, and how would you say it? That's how we got a couple of our prospects, like Klapka, was that they were there looking at somebody else, and, oh, hey,
Yeah, I think that's how they got Riddick as well. And who is that guy who looked like Wolfcastle McBain? That's how they found him. He's so memorable we can't remember his name.
Wolf,
We just remember he looked like a Simpsons character.
David Wolf, I think.
David Wolf or something like that, yeah.
I'm gonna look that up.
So
now.
yeah, I mean, you want a bunch of European scouts, and no harm, no foul. But I thought we criticized Edmonton for doing this, and now it looks like the Flames might be doing something similar. So, hopefully, I mean, I love having Jerome here. I think the nostalgia of that is great. I think it's, he's friends with Connie, but I think these guys have to make sure it's not all 04 guys coming in.
Yeah. And it was David Wolf.
There you go. Okay, is he still playing?
Yes, he's with the Kassel Huskies in the second tier of the German league. In 14 games this year, he has 5 assists.
So the German league is kind of the second tier of the pro league. So I mean, second tier German league is like third tier.
Yeah, okay. He actually won a championship with the Mannheim Eagles in the German league in 2018-19. So,
okay, cool.
And played there until this past year.
And then the other note we wanted to give is that Maceo Phillips, the Flames' third round, number 80 pick this year, he's 18 years old, has been let go from training camp and reassigned to the USHL Green Bay Gamblers. A guy who probably wasn't going to make the team anyways, and probably makes sense for him to go back to the USHL. So I think that pretty much covers Flame stories for this week. Matt, anything else you want to chat about?
Not really. It's one of those... we have to just wait and see how the training camp develops and look forward to seeing that over the next week and a half and get on to when the games actually count. And one of the things I would like to note is that after this year, there's only going to be 4 preseason games instead of 8. I am very much looking forward to that because preseason games are not very good.
So is that going to be 2 in a split squad then?
No, I think they're going to have it like 4 actual games separated instead of...
Okay, because I mean right now there's 6 with the split squad.
Yeah, 6 and then the split squad, yeah. 8 in total.
Yeah, so... Yeah, and I still think there needs to be a rookie tournament. I mean, whether it's in particular or not, I don't think it matters, but I think you might find ways to get creative around that with only 4 games. Whether it's, moves or they do it somewhere else or you put it in a different market. Like, I think they'll figure that out.
Yeah, and like I know before the Penticton thing, like they had games against the Dinos as a thing, but some of the Dinos players were a little bit too reckless, so they stopped doing that. So we'll see how things shake out for that.
But as Matt said, there's 6 games coming up. The 23rd at Calgary is Seattle. 24th they're on the road against the Canucks. Then they have a couple of games off. The 27th they're on the road in Winnipeg. 29th they're on the road in Seattle. Then they come home for the final 2 of the preseason, and that'll be the first in Calgary against Vancouver, and then the Friday the 3rd in Calgary against Winnipeg. We have a bit of a programming note. We will not be recording our usual show or releasing our show on the week of the 29th of September. So the next time you hear from us will be after the preseason. We'll put some out on the weekend of the 4th and 5th of October, where we'll talk about the preseason, look ahead to the season. But you'll have a week before you hear from us again. And there's just not, we don't think there's going to be, we have some personal things we're trying to schedule around, but also we don't know there's going to be a lot to talk about midway through the preseason. So we'll take a bit of a pause and come back after that. But Matt, any storylines developing here that you think our fans need to be aware of?
Pretty much the only young player that I feel is going to be guaranteed a spot in the NHL is Zane Parekh. And like last year, Hanzik kind of came out of nowhere after a disastrous rookie camp to be one of the best players in the NHL during the preseason. Will any of the young guys step up to show, hey, I'm getting close to be ready for the NHL, or, I'm going to make the team out of camp? We won't really know that until the games are played, though, and it'll be interesting to see who, if anybody, actually steps up and takes a spot.
Yeah, and I think really, we talked about a lot of this roster's, I think, already set, especially on the front end. So if anyone can take a spot, that'll be interesting. I think the big question, too, is still which goaltender is going to start here.
Yeah, based on the game in Edmonton, Prosvetov looked decent. Cooley didn't look bad in the game against the Oilers here. The first 2 goals, one was a breakaway, the other was an extremely bad giveaway by the Flames, setting up the guy for a point-blank shot, which no goalie was going to stop that one. The third one, Cooley probably should have had, but, I'm not going to get on him very much after like all 18 skaters did 0 in that game. Like, he was basically a man alone out there, so it only being 3-0 is actually pretty good considering.
Yeah, it's not bad. So we will talk to everyone again after the preseason. If you want to catch any of these games, you can find, I think they're all going to be on the Calgary Flames website if you want to stream them and watch them online. Or if you want to go to the Dome, it's generally pretty affordable to go to preseason games. So enjoy the preseason, enjoy some of these storylines, and we will talk to everyone again before the season starts.
As always, go Flames, go.
Fireside Chat is hosted by Dan Stevenson, co-hosted by Matt DeBorg. This episode produced and edited by Peter Marino. Fireside Chat is licensed under Creative Commons license. For full license details, visit firesidechat.ca.